Hello, friends. Tonight, we gently drift into the hushed and mysterious realm of Norse myth, where the air is cool and scented faintly with pine and frost. Above, a sky of endless velvet stretches wide, sprinkled with stars that seem to pulse, softly like the beating of some ancient heart. A gentle breeze stirs, carrying whispers of forgotten tales and the faintest rustle of unseen wings. You are safe here, wrapped in stillness, floating on a current of calm. If you enjoy this story, you might quietly tap like when you wake up tomorrow morning. Now dim the lights, curl up under your blankets, and let's glide into tonight's gentle tale. Long ago, in the shadowed edges of creation, where the 9 worlds unfolded like petals in a cosmic bloom, there lived a figure of mischief and cunning, Loki, the shape-shifting god. Though the gods of Asgard mistrusted him, Loki walked freely between realms, his laughter echoing in the deep woods and open skies. In Jotunheim, the land of giants, Loki found a strange and haunting beauty in Angrboda, a giantess with eyes like frozen lakes and hair as dark as a raven's wing. Their union, whispered about in secret by gods and spirits alike, stirred the still air with portents of things yet to come. And from this union came 3 children, each as extraordinary and strange as the worlds themselves. The first child opened his eyes to the soft glow of moonlight filtering through Jotunheim's ancient trees. He was a wolf cub, small and delicate at first, his fur no darker than the night sky, and just as filled with quiet mystery. He nuzzled close to Angrboda, the warmth of her breath and the steady beat of her heart lulling him into dreamless slumber. Yet as he slept, there was already something in him that hummed with restless power, like a river beneath winter ice. The second child was a tiny serpent, coiled loosely in a nest of moss and dew-kissed leaves. His scales shimmered faintly as though they reflected unseen stars. When he stretched, the air around him seemed to ripple softly, like the surface of a still pond disturbed by a single falling petal. The third child was unlike the others. A girl, pale as newly fallen snow, yet with an otherworldly glow that seemed to rise from within her. One side of her face and body held the blush of life, warm and luminous. The other half bore the calm stillness of shadows, dark and cool like the hush before dawn. She blinked slowly at the world, neither smiling nor frowning, simply breathing in the silence that welcomed her. High above, in the golden halls of Asgard, the gods stirred. Odin, the Allfather, gazed into the deep well of fate and saw images swimming there, images of chaos, of endings, and of these 3 children entwined with the fate of gods and men. Yet in this moment, far away in the hidden corners of the world, the children of Loki knew nothing of destiny. They simply breathed, they dreamed. And in their dreams, the universe sighed softly, as though it too wished to rest. The night deepened over Jotunheim, and the air grew still, as though the world itself paused to listen. A pale moon floated high, its light spilling like liquid silver through the tangle of ancient trees. Beneath its gentle glow, the wolf pup stirred. Fenrir was his name, though in these early days no one yet dared speak it aloud. He lay curled in a bed of moss and soft furs, his small body rising and falling with each steady breath. Around him, the quiet forest hummed softly, a low, soothing chorus of leaves swaying, water trickling over stones, and night creatures shifting through undergrowth. The moonlight kissed his dark fur, revealing faint streaks of silvery gray along his spine like threads of starlight woven into his coat. Even as a cub, Fenrir's presence was magnetic, as if the shadows leaned toward him and the very earth recognized something ancient stirring in his veins. At first, his days passed in calm simplicity. Angrboda kept close watch over her son, her giantess form graceful and silent as she moved among the trees, her hair brushing against the rough bark like wind in a field of grass. She whispered to him sometimes gentle, wordless sounds that calmed the restless energy coiled in his small frame. But Fenrir grew quickly. Each day, the pup's legs stretched longer, his paws grew broader, and the soft whine of his voice deepened into a low, rumbling growl that seemed to vibrate in the still air. The forest that had cradled him began to feel smaller, its trees no longer towering so high, its paths no longer winding so far. And in the distant halls of Asgard, the gods watched. Odin, with his single eye that pierced the veil of all things, saw visions of the Wolf's future, a beast so vast his jaws could swallow the sun itself. Yet even the Allfather felt a strange unease, for in these visions, there were moments when Fenrir's golden eyes held not malice, but something softer, something almost like longing. In the quiet of the night, Fenrir often sat gazing at the moon, its pale disk reflected in his eyes, and for a time he was still. He did not yet know of chains or prophecies, of gods who feared him and the role he was destined to play. In that moment, he was only a creature of fur and breath, lulled by the soft glow above and the slow rhythm of the sleeping world. Around him, the breeze shifted, carrying the faint scent of pine and cold water. A single white feather drifted down from the canopy and landed on his nose. He blinked, surprised, and let out a low huff that sent the feather tumbling gently to the earth. Then he laid his great head on his paws and drifted into dreams, where he ran freely across endless meadows under a sky strewn with stars. And far away, the gods whispered. But here, under the silent moon, there was no fear. Only the sound of Fenrir's even breathing, the slow pulse of the forest, and the eternal glow of moonlight bathing the earth in peace. Beneath the gentle rocking of the sea, where light turned to liquid emerald and the water shimmered like glass, the little serpent drifted. Jörmungandr had been cast into the ocean by Odin himself, though the serpent did not remember the harsh hands that carried him away. He knew only the calm cradle of the waves and the hush of deep waters enfolding him like a lullaby. At first, he was small, no larger than a coiled branch or a woven cord, his scales glimmering faintly as though dusted with morning dew. He floated in a quiet current, rocked gently as ribbons of seaweed brushed against him. Above, sunlight fell in pale golden shafts, breaking into dancing sparks on the surface. Below, the darkness stretched wide and endless, a tranquil abyss holding mysteries too deep for even the gods to know. As days turned to nights and back again, Jörmungandr grew. Slowly at first, then with a steady strength that surprised even the creatures of the sea. His slender body lengthened, his scales hardening into a smooth, gleaming armor that caught the faint glow of bioluminescent creatures drifting nearby. Tiny fish darted past, their bodies flickering like stars, and the serpent watched them with quiet fascination. The ocean became his sanctuary. The rhythmic rise and fall of the tides lulled him into a state of contentment, and the whispering currents carried voices that only he could hear, soft echoes of ancient songs sung by the sea itself. He followed these voices, gliding through underwater canyons and over sleeping coral gardens, leaving only a faint ripple in his wake. Far above, the gods watched. Odin saw the serpent's growth and knew the danger he might one day bring. He foresaw a time when Jörmungandr's coils would encircle the earth, his body so vast it would bite its own tail, holding the world in an eternal grip. Yet in the calm of the ocean's heart, the serpent held no thoughts of prophecy or destruction. Here, there was only stillness. The waves overhead hushed as night settled on the surface, turning the water into a mirrored sky. Starlight trickled down, faint and wavering, like dreams slipping through half-closed eyes. Jörmungandr curled into himself and let his breathing slow, the sound blending with the soft hum of the deep sea. He was content to float, to listen, and to let the ocean hold him close. Above and below, the world seemed to sleep, and within that sleeping world, the little serpent dreamed of endless gentle currents that would carry him forever. Far to the north, where light rarely lingered and frost clung to every stone, A pale figure wandered through the quiet mists. Hel, the third child of Loki and Angrboda, stood at the threshold of Niflheim, a realm of hushed shadows and drifting. Souls. Here the air felt heavy but calm, as though time itself moved slower, softened by the endless murmur of those who had crossed into this place. Hel was unlike her brothers. On one side, she glowed with a delicate warmth, her skin flush with the hue of life. On the other, she bore the stillness of death, her features shaded in deep gray and blue, cool as a moonlit glacier. Yet even in her strangeness, she carried an air of serenity. The goddess stepped lightly over frozen ground, her bare feet leaving no trace in the frost. Around her, pale blossoms bloomed in defiance of the cold, their petals tipped with hoarfrost that sparkled faintly in the dim light. She reached out to touch one, her warm fingers brushing its icy edges. The bloom quivered and opened wider, releasing a scent so faint it was almost imagined, a whisper of winter wind carrying the memory of sunlight. The souls in Niflheim watched her silently. Some drifted like fog, content to linger in the half-light. Others curled into themselves, resting as if in a deep slumber. Hel's presence brought no fear, only calm acceptance, as though she had always belonged among them. She spoke little, but her voice, when it came, was soft and low, echoing like a distant bell through the halls of mist. Far above, Odin regarded her from his throne in Asgard. He had cast her into this realm, fearing what her presence in the worlds of the living might bring. Yet as he gazed through the folds of fate, he saw a queen in the making, not one who ruled with cruelty, but one who tended her quiet domain with patience and care. In the cold, the goddess sat. Around her, glowing motes of light drifted lazily, like fireflies caught in a snowstorm. She held her hands out and cupped them gently, letting the light settle in her palms. Their warmth seeped into her fingers, and for a moment, the cold receded. Niflheim was a land of endings, but Hel brought a strange kind of peace. Here, there was no rush, no struggle, only the endless flow of time and the soft embrace of quiet. She lowered her hands and let the lights fly free, their faint glow weaving between the tall, pale trees. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of falling snow whispered through the stillness. Hel closed her eyes and let it lull her breath. Slowing, her body swaying faintly in a rhythm as old as the earth itself. And so the pale maiden rested, surrounded by silence, her realm cradled in the soft eternal sleep of the dead. In the heart of the cosmos, where the fabric of existence was spun and measured, three figures moved in quiet harmony. The Norns Verdandi and Skuld sat beside the well of Urd, their fingers weaving threads of silk and shadow into an endless tapestry that shimmered softly in the dim light. Each thread they touched held a life, a moment, a destiny. Some were bright and golden, others dusky and muted like twilight skies. And among them, three strands gleamed faintly, one dark as midnight fur, one glistening like scales kissed by starlight, and one pale as frost-tipped blossoms. These were the threads of Loki's children, and the Norns wove them with careful, deliberate motions. The loom creaked gently, a soothing sound like wind moving through reeds. With each pass of the shuttle, the pattern grew more intricate. Symbols blossomed across the fabric, waves, chains, moons, and a great tree whose roots and branches embraced all the worlds. Urd, the eldest, spoke softly, her voice carrying the weight of what had been. These threads carry power, yet there's gentleness. Here, too. Even the fiercest beast may know quiet dreams. Verdandi, weaving the present, nodded. They grow within the flow of time. The wolf gazes at the moon. The serpent listens to the deep. The maiden tends to her still garden. All is as it should be, for now. And Skuld, whose eyes held the shimmer of futures yet to come, paused. In her hands, the threads trembled faintly, as though sensing the weight of what lay ahead. Their paths lead to great storms, she whispered. But storms, too, have their place in the cycle. Even in endings there can be beauty. The Norns worked on in silence, their motions steady and graceful, their weaving a kind of music that filled the air with calm. Around them, the roots of Yggdrasil, the great world tree, pulsed with life. Drops of water fell gently from its branches, sending tiny ripples across the surface of the well. For now, the threads of Fenrir, Jörmungandr, and Hel lay smooth and unbroken, cradled within the larger design. The gods above feared these children and the chaos they might bring. But here, in the Norns' gentle hands, there was no fear, only balance. Only the quiet hum of creation and the soothing rhythm of the loom as it turned beneath an eternal sky. And so the Norns wove on, their fingers soft and sure, their whispers fading into the still air. Around them, time stretched and settled like a warm blanket, and the tapestry grew ever more intricate, holding the fates of gods and monsters alike in its silken embrace. In the golden meadows of Asgard, where the air shimmered softly with the glow of twilight, the gods gathered in hushed voices. The grasses swayed gently in the breeze, each blade tipped with droplets of light, as though the sun had scattered its last rays before sinking beneath the horizon. Birds circled high overhead, their wings catching the fading glow, and the scent of wildflowers floated on the wind. Here, in this place of peace, the wolf came. Fenrir had grown large, his paws thudding softly on the earth as he walked, each step careful, deliberate. His fur, once soft and dark as a shadow, now gleamed with streaks of silver that caught the sun like liquid moonlight. He was no longer a pup, though his golden eyes still held the quiet wonder of one who had spent long nights gazing at the stars. The gods watched him from afar, their voices low and uncertain. They spoke of prophecies of endings, of a wolf destined to swallow the sun. But as they looked upon him in this moment, there was no anger in his gaze, no hunger for destruction only. A restless energy, a deep longing that seemed to ripple through the air around him. Tyr, the brave god of war and justice, approached with a calm, steady presence. In his hand, he held a ribbon Gleipnir. They called it a binding of silk and shadow, spun with impossible softness by the dwarves deep beneath the earth. It shimmered faintly, as though woven from starlight and moonbeams. "Come, Fenrir," Tyr said softly, his voice carrying the warmth of the setting sun. "Let us play a game. A test of your strength." The Wolf tilted his head, his golden eyes meeting Tyr's. There was no fear, no anger, only curiosity. Slowly, he lay down among the flowers, his great tail curling around him like a crescent moon. The gods approached, their movements light as whispers. One by one, they wrapped Gleipnir around his legs, his body, his neck. The ribbon glided across his fur like a gentle breeze. For a moment, all was still. The Wolf closed his eyes, breathing deeply, the scent of grass and blossoms filling his senses. Birds called softly in the distance, and the sky deepened to a rich indigo. But when Fenrir moved to rise, the ribbon held firm. A soft shimmer ran along its length, and he felt the strange power in it, light as silk, yet stronger than any chain. He pulled gently, then harder, the flowers around him quivering as his strength grew. But Gleipnir held. A low rumble echoed in his chest, not anger, but something deeper, a sound like the earth sighing in its sleep. Tyr placed a calm hand on Fenrir's massive head, his fingers warm and steady. "Rest now," Tyr whispered. "The night is long, and the stars will keep watch over you." Fenrir stilled, his breathing slowing once more. The gods withdrew, their faces a mixture of relief and unease. But in that moment, as twilight deepened into night, there was no struggle, no prophecy, no fear, only the quiet of a bound wolf lying in a meadow of softly glowing flowers under the watchful sky. Far beneath the waves, where sunlight no longer reached and the sea turned dark and endless, the serpent slept. Jörmungandr had grown beyond all imagining. What once was a slender coil drifting gently in a cradle of kelp now stretched vast and silent through the deep ocean trenches. His scales glimmered faintly in the black water, reflecting tiny points of light from drifting plankton, as though stars themselves had sunk to keep him company. He was so large now that his body curved unseen around the world, his tail brushing his own head in a quiet circle. The Midgard serpent. They called him, though he knew nothing of names, only the eternal rocking of the sea and the whisper of currents that curled around him like lullabies. The ocean held him in its cold embrace, cradling his vast form as gently as it had when he was small. The waters hummed softly with life whale song in the distance, the gentle scuttle of crabs on the seabed, and the faint crackle of ice shifting. Far above, these sounds lulled the great serpent into a dreamless slumber. Above, storms rolled across Midgard, their winds tugging at forests and mountains. Lightning flashed across darkened skies, and waves battered lonely cliffs. Yet deep below, where Jörmungandr lay coiled in the quiet, none of it reached him. Here there was only stillness, broken by the slow, rhythmic pulse of the serpents. Heart, in Asgard, the gods looked to the seas with unease. They feared the day Jörmungandr would rise, feared the sight of his massive coil stirring the ocean into chaos. Odin's single eye saw further still visions of the world cracking, and the serpent's venomous breath, turning air and water to poison. But these were dreams of a distant future. Here and now, the serpent was calm. Tiny glowing fish darted around his scales, their light like lanterns bobbing on a midnight river. He shifted slightly in his sleep, and a ripple spread across the ocean floor, sending silvery sand drifting upward in graceful swirls. The movement faded, and silence returned. Even the gods, for all their power and foresight, could not disturb this deep peace. The serpent and the sea had become one, joined, in a slow, timeless rhythm that neither beginning nor ending could interrupt. Above, the moonlight touched the surface of the waves, and faintly, its glow filtered down so weak it was almost nothing. Yet Jörmungandr felt it in some distant, dreaming way, like a gentle hand brushing his brow. And so he slumbered. On, the great Midgard serpent, wrapped around the sleeping earth in a circle of quiet, eternal embrace. In the depths of Niflheim, where mists curled and drifted like wandering spirits, Hel walked alone. Her realm stretched wide beneath a sky of pale fireflies, their gentle glow floating in endless patterns, soft and aimless, like dreams that had escaped their dreamers. The ground was hushed, blanketed in frost that gleamed faintly in the dim light. Here and there, delicate flowers bloomed, fragile, frost-edged blossoms that seemed to thrive in the stillness. The air was cool but not cold, carrying the faint scent of earth after snow. Each step Hel took was light, her bare feet leaving no mark, as though she too were part of the drifting mist. Around her, the souls of the dead stirred. They were not fearful nor sorrowful. They simply were floating like faint echoes, like memories that no longer held weight. Some gathered in small groups, whispering softly, their voices like the rustle of leaves in a distant forest. Others sat in stillness, gazing at the slow fall of glowing motes from the ceiling of this quiet world. Hel paused beside a stream of clear, dark water. Its surface was so smooth, it reflected her perfectly, the living warmth on one side of her face and the cool shadow on the other. She knelt and dipped her hand into the stream. The water was neither warm nor cold, but it seemed to hum faintly against her skin, as if carrying the quiet pulse of the realm itself. Above in Asgard, the gods thought of her with unease. To them, she was strange, uncanny, a ruler over the dead who had no place in the halls of the living. But here in her own world, Hel carried no malice, no hunger for vengeance. She tended her kingdom gently, like a gardener in a silent grove. When a new soul arrived, drawn across the bridge of mists, she would greet it with calm, guiding it to rest beneath the pale blossoms or beside the glowing streams. In this realm of endings, she was both keeper and comforter, her voice low and steady as she whispered to the weary travelers. The fireflies drifted lower now, their soft light settling like falling snow. Hel raised her hand, and one landed on her palm, its tiny glow flickering like a heartbeat. She watched it for a moment before letting it go, her fingers opening slowly as if releasing a fragile thought. Niflheim was a place of endings, but under Hel's quiet care, it became something more, a realm where even endings could feel gentle, where even the heaviest burdens could be laid down at last. And so she walked on, her pale figure dissolving into the mist as the souls of the dead whispered softly behind her. In this place of shadows and silence, she was their queen, their guide, and their light. You are here now, dear listener, floating softly at the edge of a dream. The stories of gods and monsters fade like ripples on a quiet pond, leaving only the gentle hum of the universe around you. Imagine the cool air of Niflheim, calm and still, brushing across your skin like silk. The fireflies glow faintly in the darkness, drifting lazily as though time itself has slowed to a peaceful rhythm. You breathe in deeply, and the scent of frost-kissed blossoms fills your senses, a light, sweet perfume that soothes every thought. The great wolf Fenrir lies curled in a meadow beneath a moonlit sky, his chest rising and falling slowly. Jörmungandr rests in the depths of the ocean, his endless coils cradling the sleeping earth. And Hel, pale and serene, walks among the mists, her voice a soft whisper guiding souls into rest. You too are cradled in this stillness. Each breath you take grows longer, softer. Your body sinks deeper into the bed, wrapped in warmth and comfort, as though the world itself is holding you close. There is nothing to do, nothing to think, only the quiet beat of your heart and the soft drift of your mind towards sleep. The stars above gleam faintly, their light reaching you across the ages. It feels as though they are watching over you, keeping you safe as you drift further and further from the waking world. Now, let go of the day's weight. Let your thoughts dissolve like snowflakes on a warm breeze. You are drifting, slowly, gently, into dreams. The story is over, but your journey continues in a place of stillness, where time no longer matters and all is calm. Good night, dear listener. Sleep well, and let the gentle threads of myth carry you softly into the depths of your dreams.